Story 5. Alex, who wasn't exactly a ladies' man, decided to try his luck on Tinder. With low expectations, he dived into the world of swipes, hoping to find some semblance of hope. The beginning was slow. Few matches and conversations that barely went past a, "Hi, how are you?" Until, unexpectedly, a red-haired woman named Alicia popped up in his inbox. Initially, Alex suspected Alicia was a bot or someone with a fake account. She was incredibly attractive, and he couldn't believe someone like her would be interested in him. Since it was his first time using the app, he wasn't sure how to proceed, but driven by curiosity, he decided to reply, thinking he had nothing to lose. To his surprise, the conversation flowed naturally. They exchanged messages daily, and Alex's initial skepticism turned into something deeper. He asked for a video call to confirm Alicia's identity, and she agreed. To Alex's relief, Alicia was real. After several weeks of frequent calls and video chats, their connection grew. About a month later, Alicia suggested Alex visit her. Although he was nervous about meeting someone he had met online, especially given the 8-hour drive, curiosity overcame his fear, and he agreed. During the trip, Alicia constantly messaged him, asking his location and how much longer he'd take. Her excitement was evident but also intense. But for Alex, it felt strange. The messages were compulsive, one after another. Even though she knew Alex was driving, whenever more than 20 minutes passed without a reply, she'd bombard him with messages and voice notes, insisting he check his phone. This made him uncomfortable and uneasy. Soon he became nervous and continued driving, but it seemed like Alicia's house never arrived. The directions were confusing, with dead-end streets and strange paths. Alex realized Alicia's house was a bit isolated, requiring several dirt roads surrounded by trees to get there. Alex expected the trip to last about 8 hours, but with all the confusion, it took over 15 hours, and Alicia's incessant messages only added to his anxiety. Upon arrival, Alex found Alicia's house, which looked older and more mysterious than in the photos. The second-floor window was boarded up, making him uneasy and thoughtful about the place. Near the entrance, he saw the red car Alicia mentioned buying the previous week. Alex sent a message saying he'd arrived and received a simple smiley emoji in response. With his heart racing, he walked to the door. As he approached the house, he saw an older man watching him from a second-floor window. As he got closer to the door, the man disappeared from the window. Trying not to let his nerves get the best of him, Alex remembered Alicia mentioning her father sometimes visited. Alex knocked on the door, and Alicia greeted him with a smile and a big hug. For a moment, everything seemed fine. They chatted for a few minutes until Alex mentioned the man in the window, saying she hadn't told him her father was home. Alicia's expression quickly changed. She turned pale and said, in a frightened voice, that they needed to leave the house immediately because her father was traveling abroad and wouldn't visit for the next few weeks. Alex was shocked by Alicia's reaction and realized they might be in danger, so they ran out of the house. As they left, both looked back and saw the old man in the second-floor window again. Alex asked Alicia for an explanation, and she said she wasn't expecting any other visitors and had no idea who the man was or how he got inside. Alex called the police, who arrived quickly. They described the old man as looking scary, like he hadn't eaten in days, with a bruised face. The police searched the house and its surroundings but found nothing. The police then advised them to return home and, if they stayed, to lock all windows and doors. Alex decided to spend the night and look after Alicia, as she would be sleeping alone. Alicia told Alex her father kept a revolver, which she fetched and handed to him. They went to the living room. Alicia tried to sleep but kept waking up, while Alex stayed up all night watching TV with the revolver on his lap. In the middle of the night, when everything was quiet and Alicia was asleep, Alex thought that the next day he might have some peace and a chance with Alicia. However, around 4 in the morning, Alex heard the sound of the back kitchen door handle being turned. Quickly, he grabbed the gun, approached the door, and to try to scare whoever was on the other side, he slowly cocked the gun. With all that silence, every sound was loud. Then he pointed the gun at the door and looked through the peephole, seeing the old man who had invaded the house earlier. Hearing the gun's sound, the old man ran into the forest behind Alicia's house. Alicia, worried, called the police again. After a few minutes, the police arrived, searched the forest around the house, and found nothing. At that moment, the old man must have been well hidden in the forest or had already fled far away. Alex realized the old man was stalking Alicia, so he suggested she sleep at a friend's house. It was clear to him that the meeting he hoped for would never happen. The police left, and Alicia went to her friend's house. Alex stayed a bit longer to call his brother and tell him what had happened. A few minutes later, sitting in his car on the phone with his brother and about to leave, he saw someone move out of the corner of his eye. He noticed it was the same old man standing in front of the house watching him. He sped off and told his brother what was happening. After hanging up with his brother, he thought about calling Alicia to tell her what had happened. He didn't want to scare her, but in the end, he decided she needed to know. Alex decided to stop meeting with Alicia and never got over what happened. Even when meeting a few girls on Tinder, he always expected the worst. Eventually, he deleted the app. According to Alex, Alicia never returned to that house. And you, what would you do? Story 4. When he was 21 years old, Brian had just broken up with his girlfriend and had recently become a cop. As a new officer, he had the mindset of, I'm invincible and can take on anyone. Full of confidence, he didn't imagine how sinister an encounter could be. He decided to try Tinder. His match, Jennifer, suggested they meet at her house at night, which was in an open field, perfect for a night of stargazing and sharing secrets. The isolated location didn't alarm Brian, who only saw a romantic date. The night of the date arrived, and Brian picked Jennifer up from work. Jennifer got in, smiling and hugging him in the car, and they left. When they arrived at the house, Brian parked in front of Jennifer's house so she could grab something inside. She quickly returned, and they drove to the field, with the open, cloudless, starry sky promising a memorable night. As they entered the field, they looked for a spot to park under the dark, starry night. When they stopped, Brian noticed a van approaching them, but he wasn't sure. As the vehicle got closer, he confirmed it was a van. He was a bit confused, thinking they were the only ones on the property. As the van approached, it seemed like it wouldn't stop. A bit more, and the van would have crashed head-on. But as it got close, it finally braked and stopped in front of Brian's parked car, blocking his car from moving forward. Jennifer was confused. Assuming she didn't know who it was, he prepared for the worst and told her to stay in the car while he checked what was happening. The night's silence was broken by the van's door opening and a big, imposing man stepping out. His look was not friendly. Brian went to meet the man. A bit angry at this point, he asked what was going on and if the man could back up a bit. Surprisingly, the man was very polite and in a low, gentle voice said he was the property owner and didn't want to scare them. According to the man, who introduced himself as Henry, he was having problems with hunters on his property and just wanted to ensure Brian and Jennifer wouldn't shoot or harm the animals. Brian, a bit surprised, lowered his voice to a calmer level. Though his words were calm, the atmosphere remained tense. Returning to the car, Brian noticed a radical change in Jennifer's behavior. She, who was previously excited, was now constantly on her phone, typing frantically. When he asked about it, she changed the subject, keeping her eyes fixed on the screen, refusing to reveal whom she was talking to. He found it strange, but attributed it to nerves. About 30 minutes later, he saw the same headlights approaching again, this time much faster than before. He felt the van would crash into his car. After the van braked sharply, inches from Brian's car, even closer than before, Jennifer got out of the car and ran towards the van. Brian was confused, wondering why she would run to a van that seemed a threat to them. Then Brian realized he had been tricked. Thinking quickly, he got out of the car and ordered them to stay on the ground. Obviously, Jennifer and Henry didn't comply. To Brian's horror, Henry then ran towards him and knocked him to the ground. Using all his strength, Brian managed to get up, pushing Henry away before he could grab him again. Everything was happening too fast for him to process, but he knew he needed to act quickly or expect the worst. That's when he saw Jennifer, whom he trusted a second ago, grab a metal pipe from Henry's van. She kind of shouted to him that they had a gun, but if he gave them all his money in the car, he'd get out unscathed. He refused, and Jennifer said she didn't want to hurt him. When he saw Henry running back to the van, he finally revealed he was a cop, drew his concealed weapon, and ordered them to stay on the ground. But the night still held more terror. After a moment of shock, they finally complied, and Brian ran to call 911. While calling for backup, Henry and Jennifer took advantage of the situation and ran away. They disappeared into the forest's darkness, leaving behind the van containing evidence of more sinister intentions: knives, ammunition, handcuffs, and traces of blood. The desolate scene in the middle of the field, illuminated only by the sterile moonlight and the car and van's headlights, brought Brian the reality that the night could have ended much more tragically. He never returned to Tinder, and the scars from that night remained, a constant reminder of the danger lurking in the shadows of blind trust. Story 3. Katie was always a casual Tinder user, with no real fears or concerns. After all, she had met several interesting people through the app. When she matched with Calvin, a charming and funny guy, she didn't hesitate to accept the invitation to go to his place and get to know better the one who seemed to be the perfect match. Little did she know what was coming. The night promised to be relaxing and pleasant. Katie was excited, imagining a night of laughter and good conversation over wine. When she arrived, everything seemed normal. Calvin was the perfect host, charming and attentive, serving her a glass of wine as they chatted carefreely. But as the night progressed, a strange feeling began to take over Katie. First, a slight numbness, then growing drowsiness and sudden difficulty forming coherent thoughts. The alarm bells rang in her mind as she recognized the symptom. It was exactly how she felt years ago when she was drugged at a party. Inside, panic began to set in, but Kitty knew she had to stay calm. Discreetly, she mentioned needing to use the bathroom. Calvin agreed to let her go. In the bathroom, with the door locked, Kitty grabbed her phone with trembling hands and called the police. Her words came out rushed as she explained the situation. She gave the address quickly, feeling her consciousness slipping away like fine sand. Just before passing out, she managed to finish the call. Reality became a blur for Kitty, filled with distant voices, hurried footsteps, and the sensation of being carried. She barely noticed when a bag was placed over her head. When she finally regained consciousness in the safety of a hospital, Kitty was disoriented and very scared. Days later, when visiting the police station to give her statement, she discovered the true horror awaiting her that night. Calvin had planned something macabre, which the police thought was better for her not to know entirely. The details were never fully revealed to Kitty, and maybe it was better that way. The experience left scars, and she always remembers bits and pieces of that night. Kitty deleted Tinder and swore to herself she would never enter the world of casual online dating again. Story 2. Michelle, 26-year-old Di, was on Tinder looking for a casual adventure. When she matched with Chester, a supposed 25-year-old from the same city, the conversation flowed naturally. Initially, they talked about music and sports, but soon the chat took a more intimate turn, revealing they were both looking for the same type of encounter. Excited by the connection, Michelle accepted the invitation to visit Chester's house. Oddly, Chester only provided the address after knowing which area Michelle lived in, mentioning it was nearby, a short walk away. Before committing to go, Michelle insisted on a phone call. Chester answered, and for a moment seemed like just a normal young guy, joking and chatting on the phone until Michelle felt safe enough to meet him. As a precaution, Michelle decided to pass by Chester's house before the date. It was late at night and the neighborhood was quiet, with few lights on and almost no movement on the streets. Passing by the house, she noticed something strange. 2 cars in the garage and a third parked out front, all the lights off. It didn't seem like the residence of someone alone. Suspicious, Michelle sent a message saying she was almost there. Chester replied for her to take her time as he was still getting ready. With a bad feeling, Michelle began to walk back home slowly, waiting for a clearer confirmation from Chester to enter. Then she heard the sound of a car approaching. Turning, she saw a white van without headlights turning the corner and stopping a few houses down from the given address. The vehicle stayed parked in the dark, with no one getting out. Receiving another message from Chester, asking to be notified when she reached the block so he could meet her, Michelle didn't think twice and ran away without looking back. Staying close to the houses and away from the sidewalk, she reached home safely. Immediately, she blocked Chester's number and reported his profile on Tinder. Days later, worried, Michelle and her mother decided to visit the given address. A woman answered and denied having a son named Chester. Determined to alert the authorities, Michelle and her mother went to the police station to report the incident. That night stayed etched in Michelle's mind forever. Story 1. This was a Tinder match between a guy named Chris and who he thought were 2 girls his age. This is how the conversation went. My friend and I think you're really cute. I hope your friend is also a girl. LOL. She is. Silly. Well, good to hear that. Where are you guys from? So they share their locations, which aren't far away. The other profile asks, are you busy tonight? Yeah, I am. I'm gonna be with you too. Yeah. Wanna come around 10? Yeah. Where do you guys live? Wait. Actually, our parents are home. We wanna meet at the park. We can find a place to stay there. I think we can do that. My parents are home too. Damn. What time should we meet there? 10? Yeah. Okay. What are your numbers? Let's just message here until we meet. Damn. All right. I see how it is. Gotta earn your trust. Yeah. We're heading out now. Okay? Okay. Chris then arrives at the park destination and sends a message saying he's there. He follows with, this is kinda scary. Are you guys here? That was the last message he sent to the profile before being unmatched, leaving him alone on the dirt trail in the park, completely empty of people. Chris knew by this point he had been tricked, but he wasn't sure if it was just a prank or if he had walked into a trap. Then he started hearing noises in the forest, like the snapping of twigs and leaves on the ground, indicating he was being watched. He already had his phone in hand, using it as a flashlight to navigate to the agreed meeting point. At this point, he decided to start recording for his own protection. This is the footage he captured. In the footage, you can clearly see that when he points the light toward the forest where he heard another sound, it reveals someone in the trees who then starts running towards him. As he ran, Chris stopped recording to turn off the flashlight, then ran into the trees to hide. He started recording again when he thought he had lost the person chasing him. He kept recording the rest of the way out of the park and back to his car to have video evidence of anything, just in case the worst happened. Fortunately, Chris made it back to his car and home safely. He tried to report the profile to Tinder based solely on the screenshots he took, but Tinder responded saying they couldn't find any profiles matching the description or photos. Chris obviously wasn't wise to walk into such a suspicious situation. The other profiles' refusal to give their number, as well as meeting someone for the first time in a park near the forest at night, were two major red flags indicating this was some sort of trap. He was lucky to escape. And you, have you ever had a creepy encounter? I had one that I will never forget, and I haven't used any online dating apps since. Would you like to hear my story? Comment below, and I'll share it in future videos. My name is Vulture, and see you in the next video.